kings and queens, stand up and sing with me. We were kings and queens, wake up and live your dreams. My kings and queens, stand up and sing with me.
Good evening, my name is Kanae Hughes, filling in for Kayla Hodge, and welcome to another edition of The Exchange. This week on The Exchange, we have a very touchy subject to discuss: politics. For a lot of us young adults, politics can be very hard to understand. Who is running? What are the views? What kinds of politics do they want us to put into place? Well, we sent Exchange reporter Marissa Nigel out on campus to see what students know about our current presidential candidates and what they stand for. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Marissa Nickel, and I'm your man on the street. Today we asked about politics. Here's what you guys had to say. Do you know who the current candidates running for president are? Can you name them?
I know for the Democratic candidates, the main frontrunners, you've got Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Can't say I know any of the other ones, but for the GOP, I know like the main frontrunner candidates are Donald Trump and Ben Carson. I know you've got like Carly Fiorina, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Scott Walker, whom I think he just dropped out.
Donald Trump stands out because he's a front runner, because he's getting so much controversy.
Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Bernie Sanders.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
Are you familiar with the candidates' policies? Do you agree with them?
No, I'm not familiar with their policies, and I definitely do not agree with Donald Trump's policies.
I know that Donald Trump wants to build a wall around America, something like that. Then I know they all want to defund Planned Parenthood, and they're all for the traditional definition of marriage. That's all I know.
I know Donald Trump's too extreme for most people.
Well, the only reason why I know his policies is because people made so much fuss about it, and a lot of people don't agree with it, about like making a border and stuff like that.
Are you registered to vote? Why or why not?
I am registered to vote. I wanted to vote because I wanted to have a voice to put out there.
Yes, I'm definitely going to vote.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, I'll definitely be one this year.
Yes, I'm registered because I think it's important that we all put our voice in.
Okay, so did you feel like everyone's serious about the actual topic politics? Because I know people these days take politics as a joke. So how do you feel about your experience?
I just feel like talking to young people in general, they're not exactly educating themselves on politics and who is running, because when interviewing people on the street, the main people I heard them say was Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders, and they all had something bad to say about Donald Trump. So I think that the only things that they see are just on social media, and that's how they educate themselves, and I really don't think that they're taking advantage of their privilege to vote.
Okay, so since you think they're not taking everything seriously, do you feel like they will get more engaged just because you asked them about it and they knew that they didn't know anything?
Yeah, I think that maybe they would realize that they really don't know anything, because when I would go up to them, ask them to interview them, they would just say, oh, I don't know anything about politics, you know. And honestly, in the last election, 45% of people aged 18 to 29 voted. So there's a huge chunk of people really not taking advantage of that. So I think that maybe doing this show and educating people on politics will give them that nudge to do that.
Well, hopefully they get informed. So, I know you said it was a few people who didn't really know anything, but do you feel like people just didn't say much because they didn't want to speak as much, or they just literally just didn't know?
I think it's a possibility that maybe they're afraid to say what they feel because it's very intimidating. People have very strong opinions, but I also think a lot of it is, they're not going outside of social media to really educate themselves on who is running. So.
Okay. Well, thanks, Marissa. Welcome back to The Exchange. We are back with our roundtable discussion of politics. With us in the studio is special guest Matthew Chernesky, USG Senator at Large. Welcome.
Hi.
Also with us is Sam Fuhr, and then Sarah Jane Nagel.
Hi.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, what do you guys think about the politics for today?
I thought it was really interesting in The Man on the Street how a lot of the people didn't exactly have a big idea on who all the candidates running and what their policies were and stuff. And it almost kind of worries me a bit, because I do believe a lot of people in our age group aren't really that knowledgeable on a lot of political topics nowadays that are going to affect them in the future.
I agree on that. I'm right there with you. Sometimes I don't
pursue the politics as much as I should, because it is a huge responsibility that we have now that we are able to vote and stuff. So I think that we definitely need to be more aware of what's going on in the political realm.
Yeah, I agree as well. And it's still early in the process. So not even a lot of people who aren't young adults are really paying attention yet to who the candidates are, who the issues are. But unfortunately, our generation does seem to lack an interest in midterm elections and off-year elections. So I'm hoping that we're able to coalesce together as a generation and really get involved in the process and run for office and vote for candidates and everything.
Yeah, especially with how it like affects us personally. Like, for instance, Bernie Sanders has a whole idea of like free college for students and everything, and you know, like, there's so many things that are going to affect our generation, and it's really important that we know what's going on, what we're voting for, what's passing, what's not, so that like a couple of years down the road we understand why things are happening, because we can stop bad outcomes and everything based on who we vote for, but no one our age seems to take interest, I feel.
Right. And
I'm sorry.
Just touching on the no college, or no like paying for college and everything, like it sounds good and everything, free college, but there's a few things that you really need to think about when that comes about, because number one, you think, who's going to be paying for these teachers or professors to be showing up to class? Who's going to be paying for the dorms to have electricity? Who's going to be paying just for generic stuff, you know? And also, if you think, if you had free college, you're less likely to show up to class, because you're thinking, oh, I'm not paying for this. Why show up to psychology in the morning at 8:50 when I could just sleep in? So I think that there's really things, like, even though they sound very beneficial, we really need to think them through more, because they affect us so deeply.
But on the other hand, I think it's important that we really do tackle those tough button issues like college affordability. I mean, we're at the point when a lot of lower and middle class families cannot afford college anymore.
Right.
And although college isn't the end goal for all families in achieving financial success, it definitely is something that we really need to tackle, not just as young people, but as a government itself and a nation. And that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing what the candidates come out with. We've already seen candidates like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders come out with these college affordability plans. And so I look forward to seeing what the Republicans come out as well. And I think it's going to be very interesting in how we can receive that.
This year, I feel like is very, very spread, because I know that in past years I've seen like a lot of Republicans that are very conservative, but I feel like this year almost they're like very, very conservative, and then a lot of the Democrats are more kind of an independent type Democrat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, I still think some of the Democrats are taking more liberal stances. I mean,
well, like what I'm saying is the Democrats are more spread out on the spectrum, but I've noticed most of the Republicans running this year are very conservative. Like, there's no one really that's more independent.
It's really interesting seeing, especially a political phenomenon such as the Tea Party really push the political spectrum to the right. And I think you can see like the GOP trying to out-radicalize itself and seeing who can be the most far-right Republican. But I think a big question to bring out with that is at what expense to the general election. I mean, we saw Mitt Romney take some pretty strong stances in the Republican primary, and that he came back to bite him in the general election. So I think that's something that all candidates should keep in mind when they're running for the office in the primary, is how can this come back to bite me in the future if in the general election.
And speaking of candidates, do you guys think the presidential candidacy is being taken seriously? Like, for instance, Donald Trump, we all know, like, we all have our opinions on him and know how silly he is by, like, making sexual comments about his own daughter and making racist comments about Hispanics and everything. And people, like, actually, like, you know, agreeing on everything he's saying. Like, do you guys, like, find it, like, scary? Like, it's not really being taken seriously anymore. I mean, this is the person who's going to run our country and make decisions for our country and for our citizens. Like, so how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, like, I truly think that when you're going to say something, you really need to make sure that you know how it's coming across, because you could say two similar things, but they can come off completely differently. He's not being very polite with what he's saying, and I know I sound ridiculous, but there are some points that I kind of agree with, you know? It's just because he's not coming about it the right way.
His ideas, what I like to say is, Trump, okay, first of all, I'm a person I hate to say it, but like, I'm a anyone but Trump person, just because I think he's a little crazy. Sorry. Sorry, everyone that likes him. But honestly, he has good ideas in theory, but the way he says it, he doesn't seem to have a filter. Like, the way he says things, like, I know we have a big immigration problem with, like, Mexico. Like, that's true. But the way he said it, it comes out, like, almost racist, you know?
Right.
And, like, when you, hit topics like that, you can't do that. Like, Mexico is one of the countries that border us. They're one of our allies and stuff. You don't want that whole group of people, that whole nationality of people to hate us just because of one thing that one person says, one point of view. That's not to reflect the American people. And that, say Donald Trump becomes our leader, that will reflect the American people.
And that's something that you're seeing in the Republican primary is this anti-establishment movement developing, and that you have people like Carly Fiorina, Donald Trump, and Ben Carson really rising to the top of the polls, but they have no political experience whatsoever. I mean, Carly ran for California Senate a few years ago, but she lost by 10 points. So it's really interesting to see how they're really adapting to the political realm right now. They're not used to dealing with these types of questions, and so that's why I think you see people like Donald Trump really stumbling the polls, because he's this TV media star and everything. So I don't know if he can really evolve into the Washington D.C. mantra.
Right.
Yeah, like he's not clean cut enough, I feel, to be our leader. But perhaps like maybe someone like, I don't, like somewhere in like, I don't know, maybe the cabinet or something. Not even that. That's probably too high for him. But I don't know. I can't get into the whole topic of that. But I mean, overall, I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the next few months. I'm not going to lie. It's up in the air for me as to who the two people that will end up still being in the election come next year. And I have no idea who the last two will be. You guys?
Yeah, what candidates do you guys think will stumble the polls?
For me, my favorite would be Carly Fiorina. I know it's not the popular opinion, but she can really, she wants to increase our military, which will protect us in the future. And then she wants to make us more independent and not rely on the government ourselves. Like, it will empower us. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for your responses, you guys.
This week, we asked our social media followers what the first thing they thought of when they heard the word politics. Our Twitter followers went the short, but in this case, not sweet route. Responses included lies, corruption, and controversy. It seems clear that the general sentiment towards politics is not a positive one. Another response was conflict, which is easy to understand. Much of what we see of politics is the disagreements between public figures. One respondent simply said, "Don't get involved," which seems to be a common thought. Millennials do not seem to want to be involved in the political process. When we asked for responses on Instagram, we got a little bit more explanation from respondents. Maybe because they didn't have to constrain their responses to 140 characters. Instagram user Caressable said that the first thing that came to her mind when she thought of politics included manipulation, democracy, classism, and media, as well as a distrust in politicians. This response touches on a positive aspect of politics that the other respondents didn't: democracy. However, it seems clear that the feeling was not overwhelmingly positive. User Your Fave Wallflower simply said capitalism. This one is a bit harder to interpret as we don't have any context, but it still doesn't seem positive. User Sarah Jane Nagel had a bit of a different response than those we had heard before. She said, "I think of good and bad. I cannot say that all politicians are good, and on the other hand, not all politicians are bad. I can't imagine my life without them." She also added, she hopes that people that are leading me are trying to produce something that betters the majority and not their own personal agenda. Sarah gives off a more hopeful vibe in her response. I think that we can all agree that we hope that politicians have our best interests at heart, whether or not they do. That wraps up our social media sidebar segment for this week. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Next on our show, we will have our Lifting the Veil segment. So now I have young people in the older generation can sometimes underestimate our capabilities when it comes to politics. Well, this breakdown is for the older generation. So maybe now you can have an understanding of what politics means for our generation. First things first, let's talk about the minds of young people. We are the generation that is always thinking of better and easier ways to get things done and make everyone happy. Don't believe me? Just ask CGM. You know, from MySpace or the Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook or even Steve Jobs of Apple. It was these young minds that helped create some of the target technological advances our world has ever seen. So how, as an older generation, can the mistake be made that we aren't involved in politics. I think generation seems to forget that we are millennials and about 75.3 million versus the baby boomers, 74.9 million, and Generation X, which is only about 52.7 million. So as the younger and more powerful generation, we have no choice but to make sure we are involved in our government's politics and policies, because for lack of a better term, it affects us the most. In the end, our generation has made some great strides in politics and how we get the word out to each other on the government policies and laws that affect us. Don't give up on us yet, baby boomers. Next up, I wanted to give you, our viewers, of opportunity to see some of the presidential candidates and some of the issues they are discussing. Take a look.
But you have people coming through the border that are from all over, and they're bad. They're really bad.
Don't let anybody tell you that, it's corporations and businesses that create jobs.
Absolutely.
You think being gay is a choice?
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Because a lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay. So did something happen while they were in there?
A core American value, we have to restore committed, loving family life with a mom and a dad loving their children with their heart and soul.
This is about the character of our nation. And if we will not stand up and force President Obama to veto this bill, shame on us.
Every life matters, and that is why this issue is so important. Black lives matter, white lives matter, all lives matter. Black lives matter, white lives matter, all lives matter.
Sounds like nation building. So are you saying that it's not nation building. We are assisting them in building their.
And we are going to inject the issue of morality into politics today.
With me on the couch is Exchange reporter Kaylin Milberry. Welcome, Kaylin. Now tell me, who are you looking at in the future presidential candidate?
As of right now, I'm a Sanders fan, but anything can change. With the clip that you just saw, who knows? One of these president candidates may say something ignorant or just something rude that may sway my vote. But yeah.
Okay, so why Sanders why do you see him as the future candidate?
Okay. When I did my research on all the candidates, I like the issues that he brought to the table. He brought up, issues of being a minority, issues of being a woman, which are two issues that, of course, I definitely relate to, because I fit both of those categories. But not only that, just being a college student, something else. You know what I mean? So I feel like with Sanders, he looks at all aspects of the American citizen, no matter what boat they're in.
Okay. So do you have another candidate in mind that you agree with or relate to, as far as what they have to say?
I really do like Clinton's stance on women's rights.
Okay.
I also like her stance on just the importance of education, because as a woman, you know exactly what our women needs are. You know exactly, pretty much, I'm a fan of anyone who's pro-choice. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Someone who allows me to make my own decision for my body, whether it be abortion or something as simple as birth control, or something, just the knowledge of health.
Okay. Is there a candidate that you just completely disagree with and you just wish they were clock out?
Well, I'm kind of singing the same tune. Trump is one of them.
Okay.
I really feel like he's very ignorant. And his title, even his title alone doesn't even, relate to the other candidates. Like, it's Senator of Maryland or, former governor, but his title is just businessman. Yes. I really don't think he represents America citizens, or just even the basic ideas of what America was, just the acceptance of immigrants, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Stuff like that.
I got it. Okay, so earlier I asked the discussion panel, how do they feel about the younger generation not really being informed? So how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we're informed, or we're just not informed, or we need to know more, Or how do you feel? What's your take on that subject?
I think the younger generation is really just selfish. I mean, I can admit I'm one of them. I don't think we don't put ourselves in the perspective of thinking that, you know, the laws that we vote on today or the people that we vote on today will affect how our kids will grow up. You know what I mean? Some of the opportunities they may have. And I think once we get that idea understood, then our generation will be set, but maybe that's something that just we will gain with age.
I completely agree. For an example, I had a class and someone came into my class and, you know, he had the chart for everyone to register to vote. And I was like literally, it was like at least 30 people in my class, and I was literally the only one who was actually registered to vote. And I was just like very disappointed. I was just like, what are you guys doing? Like, are you not going to vote? And then, I mean, I feel like, and when you don't vote or you don't have any room to complain about anything. So when someone doesn't register to vote or they don't vote, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like they can complain about it or anything like that?
I feel like you have no voice. You know, you can't be upset with it. You know what I mean? You have to have a stance. You know, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything. And I think that it really goes back to that saying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was nice talking to you. All right, well, that's all the time we have on The Exchange. Well, see you guys later. Bye.
So far from all your roots, we took helmet seats, built roam the streets that led to nowhere, in the hopes of finding truth. All our lives we were seeking answers, and that much we saw alone. We built our band on the grounds of happenstance. Hard to say how much we've grown. Whatever gust will to come threaten to take you away. I'm not sure I could stop it, but I know I'd say, little wayward me, and do you wanna drive away with me? You can take a break from getting beat up by breezes. Take shelter from the winds of fate.
Don't forget to stay connected with our show by following us on Twitter at The Exchange TV2 and our Instagram, TheExchange.tv2. So also don't forget to subscribe to our show on YouTube at Exchanging Views to see Exchange reporter Kayla Collins giving her input on Donald Trump and his campaign. Also subscribe to catch the episode and past episode. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.